What is the true value of safety? What is the actual cost of confidence? Each time we buckle up and hear the roar of the engines, we are placing our trust in a vast and unseen system, a system that combines engineering, procedure, and human skill. But that trust did not come from perfection. It was shaped through fire, carved by tragedy, and written into history with lessons bought at the highest price. Welcome to Crash Decoded. On this channel, we don't simply recount aviation disasters, we break them apart. We study the mechanics of failure to uncover the foundation of safety. We explore the stories where everything went wrong, not to dramatize but to understand, to find order in the chaos, to honor those who were lost by ensuring their sacrifice leads to a safer tomorrow. Today, we're investigating the most devastating aviation disasters on American soil. These are not just statistics, they are stories of people, of families, of communities torn apart. They are puzzles that the best investigators in the world work tirelessly to solve. And each solution, each painful conclusion, reshaped the rules of flight forever. This is their story. Topic 2. Investigation Framework. Before diving into the cases, it's important to explain our framework. We are not comparing tragedies, but analyzing the causes and the safety revolutions they triggered. For every disaster, we will examine the story, the cause, and above all, the legacy. The real impact of these crashes is not only measured in the heartbreaking loss of life, but in the countless millions saved because of the changes they forced. These are the crashes that echo across aviation history. Let's begin. Topic 3. Disaster. 1. American Airlines Flight. Way in 1979. The story. Our first case takes us to Chicago. May 25, 1979. American Airlines Flight 191, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, prepared for takeoff from O'Hare International Airport, bound for Los Angeles. As the jet accelerated and lifted off, something catastrophic occurred. Witnesses saw the left engine separate from the wing, flipping over the top and crashing onto the runway behind the aircraft. Despite the initial climb, the plane was fatally compromised. It banked sharply to the left, nearly inverted, before plunging into an open field. All 271 passengers and crew, along with 2 people on the ground, were killed. It remains the deadliest aviation accident on U.S. soil. The cause. Investigators traced the failure to improper maintenance practices. In order to save time, American Airlines had adopted a shortcut, using a forklift to remove the engine and pylon, together against manufacturer guidelines. This method placed enormous stress on the pylon's fittings. During one such procedure, a nearly invisible crack was introduced into a critical component. On takeoff, that crack gave way, causing the catastrophic engine separation. The legacy. Flight 191 left a lasting imprint on aviation safety. The DC-10 fleet was grounded worldwide for inspection. Maintenance practices were restructured, and the FAA imposed far stricter oversight of airline procedures. The disaster proved one thing with absolute clarity. In aviation, shortcuts are never safe. Topic 4. Disaster 2. PSA Flight. Hornet 2, 1978. The story. On September 25, 1978, San Diego witnessed the deadliest Midair collision in U.S. history. Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 182, a Boeing 727, was descending for landing while a Cessna 172 was practicing instrument approaches in the same airspace. Air traffic control warned the 727 crew about the smaller aircraft. The crew acknowledged, even cited the Cessna, only to lose visual contact moments later. The Cessna slipped beneath their line of sight. Trusting the outdated see and avoid system, the PSA crew assumed it had passed. It hadn't. The 2 planes collided midair. The Cessna disintegrated instantly, while the Boeing entered a steep spiral, crashing into a neighborhood. All 135 on board, the 2 Cessna pilots, and 7 people on the ground died. A total of 144 fatalities. The worst midair accident in U.S. aviation history. The cause. The tragedy was a chain of human and systemic errors. The PSA crew lost track of the smaller plane. Air traffic control, working with limited radar technology, failed to update them. The outdated reliance on human eyes in crowded skies proved fatally insufficient. The legacy. This disaster led directly to the mandatory introduction of the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, TCAS. This system allows aircraft to detect each other electronically and provides audible collision avoidance commands. Today, TCAS is standard equipment worldwide, removing reliance on fallible human eyesight. Topic 5. Disaster. 3. American Airlines Flight A7 2001. The story. Just 2 months after the September 11 attacks, New York remained tense. On November 12, 2001, American Airlines Flight 587, An Airbus A300 departed JFK Airport. Moments later, over the Queens neighborhood of Bell Harbor, the unthinkable happened. The aircraft's vertical stabilizer, its tail fin, separated entirely from the fuselage. The plane banked sharply and plunged into the residential area below. All 260 passengers and crew, along with 5 people on the ground, were killed. Initially, many feared another terrorist attack. The cause. The investigation revealed a different cause. The first officer, reacting strongly to turbulence from a preceding aircraft, made rapid excessive rudder inputs. These movements placed enormous stress on the tail's composite attachments, causing structural failure. Training methods at the airline also came under scrutiny for encouraging aggressive rudder use. The legacy. Flight 587 reshaped both pilot training and aircraft design. New FAA regulations emphasized measured minimal control inputs in turbulence. Manufacturers strengthened design standards for composite attachments. This tragedy reinforced how critical human factors and training are in aviation safety. Topic 6 Disaster 4 TWA Flight 800, 1996. The story. On July 17, 1996, TWA Flight 800, a Boeing 747, departed JFK Airport bound for Paris. Just 12 minutes into the flight, over Long Island, the jet exploded midair. Witnesses described a fiery streak rising into the sky, sparking speculation of a missile or terrorist attack. The cause. The investigation became one of the most complex in aviation history. Ultimately, investigators determined that the center fuel tank had exploded. The nearly empty tank contained flammable fuel vapors, and a short circuit in degraded wiring likely produced a spark inside the tank, igniting the vapor and destroying the aircraft. The legacy. The crash exposed a hidden vulnerability in fuel systems. The FAA mandated that airliners retrofit fuel inerting systems, using nitrogen to prevent flammable conditions. Wiring standards and inspections were completely revised. Every flight today benefits from the safety reforms born out of TWA Flight 800. Topic 7 Disaster 5. The Grand Canyon Collision 56. The story. June 30, 1956, 2 airliners, a TWA Super Constellation and a United Airlines DC-7, collided over the Grand Canyon. At the time, the skies were largely unregulated. Both aircraft had diverted slightly to give passengers scenic views. A developing thunderstorm forced altitude changes, unknowingly placing the planes on a collision path. The mid-air impact destroyed both aircraft. Wreckage was scattered across the canyon, and all 128 people aboard both flights were killed. The cause. Air traffic control in 1956 was primitive, radar coverage was sparse, and pilots largely relied on visual navigation and paper charts. The system simply was not advanced enough to prevent such an accident. The legacy. Public outrage over the disaster pushed Congress to act. The Federal Aviation Act of 1958 created the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA), giving one body full authority over U.S. airspace. This ushered in modern air traffic control, radar coverage, and strict safety regulations, ending the uncontrolled Wild West era of flying. Conclusion. These 5 disasters were among the most painful in American aviation history. They cost hundreds of lives and left lasting scars on families and communities. But from each tragedy, investigators, engineers, and regulators identified critical flaws and corrected them. The safety we experience every time we fly today, the strict checks, advanced systems, and rigorous training, was built on these hard-learned lessons. Each regulation is more than a rule. It is a memorial. Each safety system is a promise that those who died did not do so in vain. This is the mission of Crash Decoded. We decode disasters not for drama but for respect, to honor progress, to remember sacrifice, and to make sure the lessons of history are never forgotten. If this investigation gave you new insight into how safety is earned, share it with others. Let these lessons reach further. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because there are many more stories waiting to be decoded. Until next time.